Okay, thank you very much. So with this short introduction, I would like to give the floor first to Marco and Roberto, who can give us an update on the situation that we might face in Trieste. Who wants to start first, Roberto or Marco? I see also Ermanno is on the call. Welcome, Ermanno. Marco, maybe you start, because I recognized an email that you sent me yesterday. I haven't yet not answered, but I guess this is a very important situation that you can provide us regarding the room situation in ICTP.
Okay, so good afternoon to all. Maybe Roberto can start with the background, because he did quite a lot of lobbying for the venue, and then I can get back to the ICTP situation.
Okay, I can. Hi, everybody. I checked the hypothesis of having different venues outside the ICTP SISA. And so I contacted the Trieste Conference Center. I had a nice long chat. The conference center is available in both alternatives. Maybe I need to do a step back. I checked all the conflicting dates that have been raised, and so I think Sandra has mentioned already. We have either the end of May or the end of June as the only possible dates. The rest of June is, for one reason or the other, not feasible. So on both those dates, the end of May and the end of June, the conference center is available, the new conference center. The old conference center has a problem that is now with increasing cruise ships traffic, because it's going to be routed again. Apparently from Venice, some ships are routed to Trieste again also next year. It will be, the situation there will be fairly confusing. Plus, in case of distancing, the rooms are not sufficiently wide for our purposes. The conference center, on the other hand, I don't think that I need to provide all the information during this teleconference. I can send an email and then that can be spread around. But we have a large conference center, conference room that we don't need for our purposes, because it's really it's 1,800 people, something like this, but can be used in case we do want to make a social event that involves the city. That will be good also for promotion for the conference center, and we are going to have a basically not to pay for it, but for that room on that date. Other than that, we have different rooms that are, we can have different configurations. We will pay only for what we use. I don't have the details of the cost, because that will be done only in a later phase when we start getting a sort of commitment. The big advantage of the conference center, the new conference center, is really top-notch connectivity, and that is included in the costs of the venue. There was also a quick check on the hotels in Trieste for both dates, and as of today, there's no other major event, and therefore, if the moment that we decide the date and we do some booking with the preliminary booking with the hotels, those should be available. So that's basically it from my side.
Thank
okay,
you,
so from the
Roberto.
CTP.
Yes, Marco.
Yeah, sorry,
just
Sandra.
continue.
Yeah, so from the CTP side, we had two options. So one option was to use what is called the Adriatico guest house, which is the place where we had the meeting last year, the preparation meeting, and that has two big rooms. But unfortunately, it's not available for both the dates in May and in June. So the only available room at the CTP is the so-called Buckridge, which is the main lecture hall. It's a room for about 300 people in normal conditions. And now with social distancing, we can host 76 people. That's the maximum number. I think it has some advantages. So one is that it is in the main building of ICTP. So you have the cafeteria and you have all the offices, available. And as we were discussing about having some sessions or discussions in the outdoor space of ICTP, that is also available. And second is that it has very good multimedia capabilities. So there's a number of webcams that you can remotely operate. So for this, hybrid format, I think it would be ideal. So I will post some pictures in the chat just in a second, so you can get an idea of how it looks like. That's it.
Thank you, Marco and Roberto. And Marco, basically, you mentioned already some important trigger words because the board, the secretariat, and also the host, we of course discussed already options on how we are going to do the next EuroDIG, given the situation that we possibly will not be able to sit close to each other, to have many people arriving in Trieste. And therefore, we already had the idea that we do what people used to call a hybrid meeting, but we would like to go a step further, because I mentioned it many times already. My personal feeling is we always had hybrid meetings because remote participation was nothing new at EuroDIG, IGFs, and other national initiatives. We had always remote participation. It was just that participants on site did not really interact with the remote participants, and remote participants sometimes claim that it's kind of a second-class participation. So what we are going to do, or what we intend to do, is thinking the entire thing from the remote participant and adding the on-site participant. So put it the other way around. We are not going to organize a conference for on-site participants where remote participants can join. We are thinking about it, organizing a conference for remote participants where the on-site participants can join the Zoom room, but can also, of course, meet on the corridors or be in the building, which, as Marco already mentioned, will not have the capacity as we were usually planning for. But we also believe, looking at the last EuroDIGs like The Hague or Trieste, Tbilisi, we experienced already that filling a hall, a plenary hall of 400 people is not realistic anyway. Many people join opening sessions, plenaries from another place, in their room, in their hotel room, from their home, or from another place in the conference area anyway. So we thought, why not making this a concept and asking those who might not be able to get into the room, because we have the limits in this actually big room, but limited to what we know now, or to 20, around 70 people. So we were thinking about giving everyone the advantage of arriving in Trieste, having the opportunity to have this networking opportunity that we are, I guess, all of us desperately missing, that we don't interact with each other anymore in a personal way, only via Zoom. But then thinking the entire EuroDIG from the remote participant side and trying to connect remote participants and on-site participants constantly. And we believe that that could be a way, also in the worst case, that we again have to move to an entire online meeting, that we then can, that the concept will basically still work in a totally virtual space. But I would like to stop here and would ask the question to you now. First of all, what you might think about this concept. But to be honest, we have not much of a choice. But secondly, I would like to ask you, how can we develop a program, or how should the program planning process look like in order to achieve such a goal? Are our old methodologies with the call for issues and with forming the org teams and with the program, are these still the right tools? Or is this the moment when we are going to look into new ways of organizing EuroDIG and new ways of organizing a session? And I stop here and open the floor to everyone. Just raise your hand with the hand raise button and we will go down the line. No one is raising his hand. Come on, one should be the first. Or just speak up. Riccardo Nanni, you are first.
Hi, everyone. I'm one of the newest in the environment. I don't have much experience in organizing these kind of events, but I believe that the usual call for issues plus org teams organization is pretty democratic, because being conducted online allows many people, independently of where they are, independently of what else they're engaged in, to get in touch and participate in the organization, and also possibly to the final event. So the overall idea of keeping things as they are, just moving them online, and then have a hybrid event at the end, if possible, or a fully online one like last year, seems to me the most feasible, so I would totally support it. Of course, I'd be happy to support any alternative idea I haven't thought of, if it comes up and proves to be more efficient and more democratic in its accessibility.
Thank you, Riccardo. And I remember you've been among the EuroDIG participants this year. Am I right? And also in the...
Yes, I was.
And of course, we hope that we can also have a physical meeting for the EuroDIG participants. Basically, continue with the group that we had this year preparing online, and giving them the chance to meet in person next year in Trieste. So I hope you will stay with us in this respect.
Thank you, I really hope so.
Next is Amalie, and then Peter Koch.
Hello there, everybody. Just 2 points, please. One, I want to say the tools is good. I think the process is good. Only we should confirm on our speakers a little bit earlier. I know we were sort of rushing at the end, and I think it would be good if we could confirm maybe 3 or 4 weeks before than we did it. We really rushed last time. And the other one is the big stage. I was part of one of those, and I thought that was a great idea, and hope you will have that opportunity again as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Amalie. And I remember you organized a big stage, which was the new format this year. You organized one, and I take note that you are in favor of keeping the big stage. And you hit also a very important point. Speaker confirmation is a key issue, and something that was always kind of a difficulty towards the EuroDIG, that speakers are not yet confirmed, or that some of them were not available anymore because we were too late. So very good point you mentioned here. Peter, you are next.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra, and hi, by the way. So first of all, I would like to say that the careful planning is probably the right way to go. I understand that this is a tough situation for the local organizers and the host, and also I'd really like to get into Trieste, but at least the option of totally virtual needs to be there. It's also interesting that I guess maybe even as of today, but more likely half a year ahead, we will be so used to online only meetings that it will be an interesting, or it could be an interesting change to go back to a mixed thing. So turning it upside down, or putting the remote participants in the central focus, and then everybody else being the former remote, looks like a way to go. Maybe over the course of the next weeks, we should have some discussion, or maybe learn from others' experiences what that means for, say, so-called key people or high-level attendees, and their willingness to go into almost empty rooms on site to talk to an audience that is only available virtually. That has worked in other venues. I mean, we had IGFD with 100 and odd participants, and a few only on site, and it all has its ups and downs, and advantages and disadvantages, and we should have a more intense discussion about that. But generally, yes, that's an interesting move, and then we should go ahead. On the planning, I'm not sure that the situation itself would change some things, but just as an observation from this year, actually, most everybody being remote, that invites people to come for individual sessions and then go away, which is a bit against the spirit of having these cross-community interaction, which always happened on the floors, and also by spending some extra time in a workshop that you wouldn't have attended otherwise. And I think it's important to get that back into the overall meeting to maintain its usefulness. That said, the other part is that we might want to even more deeply look into overlap of sessions and maybe try to avoid that, and also capture, as in like 3, 4, 5 people more or less sitting in different roles, sitting in various sessions. That's something independent of being virtual or real that we should try to better avoid. Thank you.
I think, Peter, you mentioned a good thing that we also observed. These conferences, and I think I speak for the global IGF as well, participants tend more and more to participate very focused on the sessions of their interest. But it is true, we are losing kind of the multi-stakeholder discussion if we have only those who have a pure interest in one topic in one session. And with the online event, this effect even multiplied even more than to a physical meeting, where you sometimes just end up in a session which was not your intention, but you definitely don't log into a session that you have not really a focus on. That's indeed an issue. And I believe that's also a very broad outcome of this pandemic, that it will change decision-making processes because people don't meet each other anymore. You have these you're missing unintended side effects, and these unintended side effects are sometimes very influential to decision-making processes. And with the lack of physical interaction, we are totally losing this element, and therefore we are really trying to at least do something smaller as a face-to-face, and think both ways, virtual and face-to-face. Gergana has raised her hand. Gergana, please, you have the floor.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I just wanted to quickly mention an experience that I had with last week's CDIG. So they had this new interactive session called the Living Library, where they had like one person talk, present a certain topic, but like super quickly for like 2-3 minutes, and then people were asking questions about it. So I was the presenter in a few of those like super quick sessions, and in the beginning I thought like some of the sessions there were like 6 or 7 people, like super small, and I thought is this good? But in the end, actually, I really liked it because it was 6 or 7 people. It really felt like a coffee break talk, you know, and people were asking me a lot more straightforward questions than I think they would ask during a session, you know. And I think we're kind of forgetting that, like, even no matter how interactive we're trying to make a session, you are still speaking in front of 100 strangers. And so it is a little bit more difficult. I have the feeling that if we have some sort of a mechanism to like have a coffee break that pushes people into groups of 5 to 6 people randomly, so you're not in a cluster of like your friends that you already know, but like completely new people. And then, I don't know, have a random topic, or maybe even topic that you haven't chosen, but hey, you randomly selected this topic. You know, sometimes on a coffee break, you don't really determine always the topic that the conversation is going to lead us to. So maybe if we have some mechanism to randomly select groups of 5 to 6 people to speak on a topic during a coffee break, that would be useful. For me, it was really like surprisingly interesting discussions during this half an hour with the 5 or 6 people. So I was really happy about that. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, Ghana, I have a question on
Yeah.
what you just said. I understand you recommend this as a format for a virtual meeting. Would you also recommend this for a physical meeting, that we form these very small groups on certain topics?
I think so. I have seen it in some meetings that is like a workshop that's split into like 4 different groups, and then they debate. Like I've seen this in both IG meetings and non-IG meetings. So I think in an in-person meeting it would work well too. I'm just wondering like if we can also make it online. Like I think I was surprised how well it worked online. Just as a experience that I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you. That was interesting. Thank you very much. Next is Wout, then Jorn, and then Vittorio. Wout, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Sandra. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, and hello all. Just to come to your question, where the opportunities that we may have in late June is that there is a vaccine, and all of a sudden everybody does come to Trieste. So how do you go about that contingency? My personal guess is, like I said last time, that we won't be able to come, but there are at the end 3 options that somehow need to be in the back of the mind of the organization. So that is one. The other question on experimenting with the modus of the EuroDIG. I think that knowing how fast time spends, that it is unwise to throw everything out at this stage, but it could be worthwhile to explore 1 or 2 different options than the usual format that we have. And that could be like the breakup session we just heard, which I think is an excellent idea. It could also be that 1 or 2 topics are selected to try and come up with a collective point of view or a potential way forward to solve a specific IG problem. So looking like the IGF does, is IGF Plus model to be something of a policy incubator, but then with the collective knowledge of the people that are present. And that is an option that is often overlooked. We discuss through presentations and a few questions, but then everybody goes home. So there will be other thoughts, and let's try to get them out and see what could work as an experiment for June. The third one is that I tend to notice that is more topic related, but I'm not going to support any topics, but as an idea that Europe is getting more and more in the middle of China and the US and less democratic countries and the West, and what exactly are the topics that are of interest to Europe. And that is something that we need to figure out, and there will be very different points of view into that. But it is something that I think that EuroDIG could actually help start discussing this within a very broad stakeholder community, because we do have our own interests in protecting ourselves, in cooperating, in reaching out. And can we get them out in big plenary debates and perhaps also in these breakout sessions? So that's just 3 ideas to how to go about in June. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wout. I have one comment and one question to you. First of all, if we are really in the lucky situation to have a vacancy by then as Marco said already, the room usually covers 300 people, and that would be enough for EuroDIG, because we always had rooms between 300 and 400. So that should be fine. Let's hope for that scenario. And on the topic, because you went already a little bit into the content part, what topics are of particular interest for Europe, I have a very concrete question. Do you believe that the call for issues, as it was conducted since quite a while now, I would say 7 years or 6 years, do you believe this is still the right tool and the right methodology to get these topics, or do you believe there should be other decision-making processes, how we define the topics for EuroDIG?
I think it could be a mix, Sandra. Just speaking for myself, so don't take any offense what I'm saying, but people who present topics like I do myself present usually their hobby horse, or they have some sort of an interest behind it. And yes, that can, the way that EuroDIG is organized leads to more common topics through that, because there will be more people selecting the same topic, but we may miss an important topic because of that. So perhaps there could be some sort of an editorial board or however we call it that comes up with 1 or 2 topics that there is a common sense about to actually do that, and does not come back to a specific organization, but is something which more or less reflects the importance of the whole of Europe. And so it could be very well be a mix, because yes, we have very interesting topics at EuroDIG, so don't get me wrong, I'm totally in support of the way that works, but we could maybe get out just this step extra and become some sort of a policy incubator because of that, because all these stakeholders come together at EuroDIG at the same level. There is no difference between a government or a civil society organization, a technical organization, etc. And that may get a different sort of discussion than when one specific organization asks input to that specific topic. So that's what got me thinking on, perhaps as an experiment, we could try 1 or 2 different modes to organize and see if it works.
Okay, thank you, Wout. This was very concrete, and I would urge our subject matter experts and people involved in EuroDIG since many years, hearing to that, in particular when Wout was proposing sort of an editorial board. We tried this a little bit already with the subject matter experts, having a more of a global look at the program, but I think we have to move that way. Next is Jorn.
Hi. I can only agree with Wout. I think it's important, well, of course, first to select issues or collect issues. That is a good process, I think. But then we should experiment this way and try to create different formats. Maybe not switch completely, but maybe try 2 or 3 workshop synchron sessions that work differently. So we can experiment with it and see if we can reach more of a consensus, more of a result, and not just present different ideas on stage. Concerning the COVID situation, I think there is nobody who can really do a prognosis. This is not possible. A vaccine, although it might be available, will not be broadly available. So we cannot rely on that, even if it's going to be available. There are fast tests, the antigen tests that will be available or that are already available and that will be available in higher numbers, and maybe they will allow to do bigger events. Maybe the situations will be quite fragmented over Europe like it has been in the past, and unfortunately the European Union does not take a lead there, so it risks to be very fragmented in the future as well. So I think we should plan for every kind of situation. And my proposal would be to plan with the focus on online. And like we had on-site meetings that were in reality hybrid meetings with a possibility to participate online, but not with a focus on online participation. We could create a new format of hybrid meetings that are focused on online with the possibility to have on-site participation. And then if on-site participation becomes impossible or limited to some participants, we don't have to change the planning process, but it will work as we have planned it. So we don't have to too big risk to change the concept, and then of course we can adjust in March and April when we see how the situation develops and see if we can keep the location or not, or what we need to do. So these 2 points, I think the idea of Wout is very good, to try new formats and also to be kind of more productive in reaching results that can be published, presented, and that are more than a collection of ideas that were presented.
Thank you, Jorn. And just one more consideration that I would like to share with you, that we discussed with the host already, is that meeting a conference center would be really a nice opportunity, and this conference center is very nicely situated, the one that Roberto referred to, nicely situated, and we could possibly have a very nice event there. But the problem is that we have to have a contract with them. And the good thing with ICTP is that even if we have to cancel our rooms due to the pandemic 2 weeks before, that would be less of a problem with ICTP than it would be with the conference center, where you have booked in advance and all these kind of things. So that's also something why we thought already, and Jorn, thank you for confirming this idea, why we thought thinking it first from the online side or from the online participants perspective, and adding the on-site participants to that concept, but being able to go back to virtual in case we need. Okay, next is Vittorio Bertola, and don't be surprised, I just jump up and get my phone because I could hear there was something on my phone, but I listened to what you say, so don't find it offensive that I will disappear for a moment.
Don't worry, I'll never be offended. Thank you. Now, well, actually, before getting to the topic of how to organize the conference, I really want to, hope that we can go to Trieste, and I want to encourage people to go to Trieste. Actually, this year, after I attended the EuroDIG from my home, and on the Saturday, I drove 5 hours and I went to Trieste because I really wanted to go there, and the area is really wonderful. So I mean, that could also be part of the problem. If at the last moment, if we realize that, depending on the pandemic, we can actually be in Trieste, then we can also think maybe at some extra events for the people that want to, or even just some guidance for people that want to stay there. So, I mean, in terms of the conference, well, I must say this is not, to flatter you, but EuroDIG was by far the better organized virtual conference that I attended this year. really. So, I mean, I think that we are already on a very good way of, I mean, for doing such a conference. And the procedure is, I'd say, okay. Maybe, I mean, sometimes I find it a bit overkill in the latter part when you get to organize smaller sessions there. It's really very, very structured, and sometimes for the smaller sessions, it's a bit too much. But in the end, it's better to err on the side of inclusiveness than on the side of letting people just do things on their own. So, I mean, I think that the traditional call for topics is still okay. I don't mind if the Secretariat wants to invite proposals on some specific topics. So there could be topics that you say, I mean, maybe we would particularly welcome submissions on these broader topics. But I don't feel the need for a program committee. I mean, in the end, it's true that people tend to propose stuff which they are directly interested in, but nothing really prevents people from proposing also other stuff, even if they don't have an interest, a direct interest in it. So, I mean, the bottom-up method really allows also to prevent some capture, because it's, I mean, while if you have a committee, then you enter into, I mean, how do you define such editorial committee or whatever, and it gets worse, I say. So, I mean, the hybrid model is good. The problem, I mean, I would be careful of, I mean, the biggest problem I see with virtual or mostly virtual conferences is that it's hard to focus. So, I mean, in a physical conference, you used to go there for a few days and then you only or mostly focus on that. And these days, you cannot do that if you're attending virtually. So, I mean, paradoxically, I mean, you might be tempted to spread this over more days like the IGF is doing, so that, I mean, there are less overlaps, but then you completely lose their focus and attention. So people just show up for 1 or 2 sessions that they really are interested in, and all the others, nobody shows up. And so you lose the cross-contamination. So I think I mean, the hybrid model also would focus us to stay concentrated and build something which is in short and intense. And I think it's still better even in the hybrid model. Well, what you could try to do is to try to build some virtual equivalents for the hallway conversations. I mean, other conferences like the IETF have tried to do this. The IETF has tried a sort of graphical interface which reproduces the hallway of an actual conference center, so that people move their avatar and they bump into other people, and then a video conversation starts. And I mean, it worked, but not too much. So, I mean, it was not a super success, but maybe you could look into these kind of things if you wanted to try them. As a minimum, you could have just a permanent chat, and the breakout rooms are also a good idea. Maybe what you could have is sort of a per topic chat room, or maybe per topic chat slot. So maybe you could just say people that are interested in this broader topic, they could meet in this chat room at this time for 1 hour and see who shows up. And maybe you get 3, 5, 7 people, and an interesting conversation starts without a particular, I mean, direction. So that's also, I mean, something new you could try. But for the rest, in general, I think we could just go on like last year. It worked pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vittorio. Next is Giacomo, then Roberto, and Marianne Franklin. She also requested hand up in the chat. So Marianne, if you still would like to speak, then you would come after Roberto. But first, let's give the floor to Giacomo.
I want to intervene on various topics. The first is the date. If we stick to end of June, as we discussed the other day in the board, there is a risk that we will conflict with the Broadcasting General Assembly that usually is the end of June. So this could be a problem for their involvement. The second is about the Congress Center in Trieste. That seems a very good idea on one side, because this will be an environment that will be already organized and ready to fulfill requirements for an event like this. But on the other side, we are losing the intimate relation that we want to have with the university and the research people. So it's a risky decision to be taken. And on the top of that, Congress Center, usually when you have to ask for to set aside services for you, technical services usually are very costly. So this could be a problem, especially if we don't get the umbrella of the local institution to cover that kind of cost. So this is a warning that I want to share with my friends in Trieste. Last point is about the call for issues. I think that we have discussed this in various occasions. I think that the limit of the call for issues and of the process that later happened within the EuroDIG process is that we lack of mixing what come from the bottom up referendum, let's say, because you collect all this proposal, and we lack to compare all these good ideas with the target that the political target that we want to achieve. What I mean, for the example was some years ago, the matter experts, they considered that some months after the approval of the GDPR, the discussion on GDPR was over, while all the people that was the institution involved with the GDPR, they said, no, it's just now that we need to discuss, because the application of the GDPR and the impact on procedures and the infringement procedures, et cetera, is just the beginning of a process, not the end. So I think that what is missing is that once that all the proposals have been collected, we need to have a discussion with the partners and to ask them how all these ideas could fit into the agenda of the next month. I think that what makes EuroDIG relevant is if we are able to provide a European position on topics on the right moment. If, for instance, next year, let's say that is the end of June, if by end of June next year, we know that the Digital Service Act will have to be discussed and go into Parliament in July, I think that we need to have a specific focus on that, because EuroDIG can bring its own contribution to this debate. And this is what is missing today. So my suggestion is, between the end of the collection of all the call for ideas and before we go into the discussion with the experts to see how this can be organized, to introduce a layer in which we see how this could fit and serve the purposes of the political agenda for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Giacomo. On the respect of how we are translating the call for proposals into a program, and that partners should have a look at it, I just would like to mention that we always had the planning meeting in January, which was also open to the public, where everyone could join. And basically what we are doing here, this earlier planning meeting, is basically what was limited in the past to EuroDIG partners and partners and the host, basically, because usually we went to the place, to the city where we were planning to organize EuroDIG for the first time in September or October. This year we can't, but luckily we know the place already and we know the host already, which is good. So therefore we are actually already a little bit ahead of defining the topics all together, and have the planning meeting as we usually had potentially in January, if we stick to the call for issues. But let's hear what others say. Roberto is next, and then Marianne.
Yes, thank you. I have two points. The first one is related to the COVID situation and the uncertainty. I am a little bit more optimistic in the sense that right now we have no clue of what the situation will be in June next year. However, I believe that in the next months, the situation will clarify. I think that around January, February next year, it would be clear how we have, especially in Europe, past the winter, which seems to be a major risk. What is the situation with the vaccines? What are the government's intentions in terms of enforcing limitations? What is, I think that by the moment that we have our traditional planning meeting mid-January, we should be, if we are still having that at those dates, I think we will have a much better picture of the situation, and we will be able to make less inaccurate forecast on what the situation will be going towards the summer. So I think that right now we should keep flexible, but knowing that we might be in a better position in a 3-4 months time frame. So midway between now and the event. The second thing is this point that has been also discussed in the chat, that is related to the bottom-up and top-down and so on. Yeah, of course, there's always a mix of the two, but I think that there are a few things that have to be kept as principle. First of all, to give enough space to the community input, and that has been egregiously done in the past by the Call for Issues, where we have a lot of you know, input coming, and I don't want to lose that. And the second thing is that our process is a sort of a two-phase process, where we first have the ideas and then we fine-tune. And I think that this is a procedure that gives far better results than, for instance, the IGF, the global IGF procedure that has been also adopted by some of the local IGFs, where the proposal is not a two-phase proposal, but where you have from the beginning, 1 year before, start providing a fully, a complete proposal, including the name of the speakers, where you have to, from the start, ensure that you have enough diversity and all this. And this is a serious problem and a serious obstacle for having new ideas and for having those things that, and maybe things that happen over time, and things that happen at the last minute with a last minute adjustment to the topics, to the shape of the sessions that are proposed. So I think that it's good to experience new paths, and yes, I believe that it's obvious that the area subject matter experts will have even more authority in order to put together the different ideas and the different topics. But I think that the fact that there's large space for ideas that are coming from the community, and the fact that we have this two steps process, those are things that, in my opinion, should remain in the new system that we want to propose. Last but not least on this, I wonder whether we are talking about already doing something different now for the 2021, that is, and we have already a sufficient sufficient uncertainty about the format, about the conditions in which we will be performing the actual EuroDIG, that to add another level of uncertainty, which is a different method, if that is not going to be too much of a change for the same in the same year. But that's just a warning. I'm not against it, but maybe we need to think about seriously. Last but not least, the date. I heard that Giacomo has raised an issue about the end of June. I think that whatever date we choose, that we are incredibly late. I think that especially here, in the contacts that I have with the local community and with potential sponsors, potential places, even for the conference center and so on, I think that we must come up with a date and decide it and state. So if it's the end of June, if it's the end of June. If it's something different, decide as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Marianne, you are the next.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Sandra. I think we've got many discussions going on. I'm not going to enter into the issue around the substantive content, because I can see on the chat that we're pretty much all on the same page in some way or another about trying to keep open to the ideas, but also to focus on various levels of topics. My concern is the participatory modality and the kinds of participation that we can expect and that we would want. And I just want to say fantastic work that was done in the last EuroDIG with going online. I just think we need to remember what was achieved in that last meeting and the levels of participation that we got because people were forced to be digital. So I think that's a plus. And I'd like to see that in place so that people who do not feel like they can travel or should travel can participate as they did this last year. And I think if we can retain that multi-platform approach in even a more developed way, Sandra, than is normally the IGF, it's sort of like a second best, remote participation because you can't be here. So I think that there's lots of potential there to take forward the lessons learned and the opportunities. I've traveled around the world in a time of pandemic, and I have changed my position on this virus and its political, let alone its social implications. It is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And by this time next year, even this time next year, we probably won't know much more than we do now. I think governments will be making decisions between now and spring. I think we need to be basically prepared for it still being with us. It's still affecting travel because different governments will have different regulations in place. I certainly want to be in Trieste for all the same reasons everyone else wants to be in Trieste, and I want to be in a face-to-face meeting. But I learned with the amazing organization and all the work we did, particularly with Minda Moreira and Michael and Alex in our environmental issues panel, that you can make a digital online format work very, very well. And maybe we could flip it and think digital and hopefully with face-to-face participation. But I've become a complete pessimist about this virus. I was in a New Zealand winter. I've been locked in a hotel room for 2 weeks. I've learned what it really means to be in quarantine. Do not underestimate this virus, and we mustn't underestimate its political effects, and that's going to affect policy. It's definitely going to have an impact on the topics people will want to bring up, and rightly too. These are deeply embedded in European policy making around the internet, and I think we should take that and take that bull by the horns and proceed to organize ourselves in 2 parallel multi-platform ways. And I think that will make for a really exciting, innovative meeting as always. It's not an either or. And also the top-down, bottom-up discussion, I absolutely agree, it's not an either or either because there's a whole middle bit. So I want to be in Trieste, but if I think for a minute it's not possible for health reasons, I can't travel. I want to be able to take part in EuroDIG in the same quality that we got out of it this year. And finally, Sandra, I know you're worried about people getting into bubbles about topics, and I can see how that becomes accentuated online, but we can't force people to do things. If they want to come to a specific topic, they're going to go to that specific topic. So that kind of flexi, diverse form of format, I think if we can keep that going, like the flash sessions, the coffee clubs, we can help people sort of mix and mingle. But we can't force people. They're not our students. My students are paid up to my classes. I have a certain amount of forcefulness, and even then I can't force them. So that's just a little practical point about human nature. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Chris has raised a hand. Chris, you have the floor.
Hello. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I think what I would say, and certainly like Marianne, I'm not particularly optimistic about this. I'd love to go to Trieste. I don't particularly expect to be there. I think the only thing to say about that at this point is, as long as we are absolutely planning that a fully online meeting is a possibility, it's great that we're planning and hoping for a hybrid situation. But if we get to February or January or whatever it is and have to make the call, this is going to be completely online, that shouldn't take us by surprise. That shouldn't be something that we're not prepared for. So let's make sure that throughout this process, we're ready for that. The other thing I just wanted to note, and I mean, a bit coming from the discussion in the chat and also a point I made there, the one thing that will be different this time is I don't imagine we're likely to have the full day, sort of intensive day or even 2-day kind of event that we've had in past years, including this year, for preparation in January. So that already is going to change the dynamic a little. We're going to have to look again at what that part of the process looks like. So, I mean, I think that offers an opportunity. I mean, I'm with Roberto in not, let's not change everything if we can avoid it. Let's keep what works. But that is not going to be the same. We're not going to have 2 8-hour planning sessions on consecutive days in the way that we have in the past. So I would suggest we think about what does the alternative look like, and maybe use that opportunity to foster some new processes or approaches using the SMEs, using the Secretariat, using maybe other groups or experts to think about how best to use the schedule, the time that we have in June or May or whenever it is. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just to let you know, I'm used to moderate 8 hours meeting for boards and so on.
I will not be there for 2 8-hour consecutive.
No, I'm joking. You're right. We have to look into how we organize the January traditional planning meeting into 2 meetings or even more. So absolutely, you're right. Anyone else would like to speak up? I see no other hand raised at the moment. But maybe we could use this opportunity, and Sorina, I'm sorry if I put you on the spot now. We had a little chat already, if you thought about already how to move forward in terms of the call for issues. You said you haven't yet, but maybe you would like to share also some of the first conclusions and results that you had with CEDIG. I mean, it just took place recently, and it was on purpose that we put the debriefing meeting before CEDIG and the planning meeting after CEDIG, because we usually start our way together. Sorina, maybe you would like to share some thoughts with us.
Thank you, Sandra. Hello, everyone. Yes, our meeting was very recently, 2 weeks ago, well, less than 2 weeks ago. And it was spread over a week. We had the usual main discussions, we call them main sessions this time. And in addition, we had those creative tracks, and Gergana mentioned one of them being the living library. We also tried to bring some art, some social events, and some other stuff into the meeting. You can still check our website if you want to see the program and how it looked like. We haven't really had the time to discuss about what next. We're still looking into, the actual follow-up on the meeting and what exactly happened there, what went well, what didn't go so well, how we did in terms of participation and the level of debates. So we're not there yet in terms of starting a discussion on what next. We don't even know when we would like to have the next meeting, whether we go back to the spring as we had it before this year, or whether we keep it to autumn as we had this year. So we're still pretty much in the phase of asking questions, but not really having answers to anything. we haven't discussed about new call for issues, or as you've been discussing here, whether something else should be done. Just for a bit of an insight into how we did it this year, we had the usual call for issues, which went along with the EuroDIG one. You know, we have the joint one, or we have been having the joint one for a couple of years. But building on that, we also had a program committee, which was basically taking up the topics from the call for issues, putting them together and building the program based on that. So it was a group of 9 people working on the actual program out of the call for issues, and we didn't go with organizing teams and the approach that EuroDIG is having, which I guess is also something that has to do with our community and the level of engagement across the whole year, because this year was completely messed up for us. We started with the plan to go in May, then we moved to September, and it was a long time commitment for the people involved. So I cannot say much at this point, unfortunately. We'll try to report on what happened a few days ago in our meeting, and then start the actual thinking about what next, and we'll keep in touch with EuroDIG to see what are the things we can work on together, and yeah, what else will happen, but not much I can say right now. But if you have more questions for us, I'm here.
Thank you, Sorina, and apologies again for putting you on the spot right now, but it was good to hear, and of course we stay in contact, the EuroDIG and the CDIG in our collaboration anyway, so thank you for this. Is there anyone else who would like to speak up? I see we have already people leaving the call. If this is not the case, then I would like to sum up what I heard from you so far, and please let me know if I misunderstood or if you interpreted it otherwise. I hear that the concept that we started with of putting online first and adding the on-site participants is well received, and that you are in general agreement with this approach, by keeping in mind that we might end up again with an online meeting, which nobody wants. We would like to go at least with a hybrid meeting, and even if the community on-site is of a smaller size, it would still be beneficial for those being on-site present, but we should improve the experience for remote participants, and therefore thinking remote participation first and adding the on-site participation to the remote participation. How we are going to do that technically, that's another story. We have some ideas already. We will come up with some more details on this later. I also take from this call that the call for issues is something that we should keep, but that we should then look on the program a little bit more from a global perspective, so that we don't miss out the topics that are of particular interest for Europe, in between the two power forces of China and the US, as it was mentioned, and that this should be done either by the subject matter experts who are looking at all proposals anyway, but also by involving partners, and I would go even further, involving the entire community, so that we do not end up with proposals that are, what was the hobby horses of participants, but that have a little bit more of a global impact. And I also took note that sessions, like very small sessions like the Living Library that was at CDIG, with 6 to 7 people participating, can be very beneficial, because the discussion is very lively in this respect. But at the same time, we should try to find again a way how we foster a real multi-stakeholder discussion, and not just where participants go to their very focused area. So we will possibly have to play a little bit with those two formats, maybe by randomly putting together the participants for a living library to 6 to 7 people that are predefined and that usually don't know each other. I don't know. This is still something that we have to discuss. I do guess our planning meeting, the usual one, will be in January. because what we will do now, you have possibly recognized that we have a new website. We will set up the call for issue on the new website, and as soon as all the technicalities are ready, we will launch the call for issues. You will find out via our newsletter and also on the website, on Twitter, and so on and so forth. And because we are a little bit later in the process, the call for issue will be a bit shorter than usually. I expect we will end in the first week of December, maybe last week of November, something like this, so that we have the IGF still included, but are still able to look at the proposals that came in before Christmas, so that we can start with a concept in January. I thank you very much. Are there still any other issues that have not been mentioned yet, but that you would like to bring up, even if it's something totally different? I'm looking at the participants list if someone raises his hand. Okay, I also don't see something in the chat. Then let me thank you very much. We will publish the recording, and please follow the newsletter and follow our website and participate in the call for issues when it's out. And we are looking very much forward to start the next cycle. And first and foremost, stay all healthy. Numbers going up in Europe. It's really important that we keep good care of our health. Thank you very much.